So I'm sure at this point you've heard the news, but in case you haven't, Nintendo has announced the price of the expansion pack for their online service, which has Nintendo 64 games, Genesis games, and the Animal Crossing New Horizons DLC for the small price of $50 a year. Hardly a noticeable difference from the $20 a year you were paying before. And as you can imagine, the fan reception has been pretty positive. After all, the math, I did it, and it only is $4.17 a month. What? Are you going to tell me that you are so poor that you cannot give a struggling company like Nintendo just $4 a month? Is that not worth it to play Mario Kart 64, play games like Star Fox 64, and Mario Tennis online with your friends? Don't you want to play Super Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time on your Switch? They're even adding the English translation of Sin and Punishment. They're also going to be adding Paper Mario, Majora's Mask, and Banjo-Kazooie in the future. Is that not worth it? In all seriousness, we should have known that the price of this was going to be pretty high. Not having the price announced in the direct last month was a red flag. And revealing the N64 controller would be $50, it definitely made me think that the expansion pack was going to be a lot more expensive than what people thought it would be. It's funny to think about how Nintendo was actually the first of the big three companies that put their retro games on a modern system way back in 2006 with the Wii. Yeah, Virtual Console. Remember that? It was a fantastic idea, and sure, you could argue that some of the prices were a little higher than what they should have been, but at least you paid the money and you got the game on your system, and like that was that, right? And then and then the Wii U came out, and they just dropped the ball. Your previous purchases did not carry over, and they did not have all the games right out the gate. They had to build up the Virtual Console library on the Wii U, and I remember reading somewhere that it was more time and effort to do it for the Wii U because with the Wii they were just running in 480p, but to get those retro games working properly in HD resolutions took a little bit more legwork. So it was understandable. And then the Wii U Virtual Console library grew. They eventually added like GBA, DS, and a ton of other systems, a ton of other retro systems and games, and it was great. And then we jump over to the Switch, and once again, the Virtual Console is just nowhere to be seen. Like in my mind, the work was already done. Like they were already in HD from the Wii U. All you had to do was just get all of them day one on the Switch, and then add more later on, and it would have been great. In my mind, that's how it was going to play out, right? And that would have been amazing. But nope, just drop it entirely. And then about 6-ish months later, they released the Nintendo Switch Online, which starts off with NES and SNES games. They're going to be adding more later. No big deal. So I'm not even gonna lie. When Nintendo first revealed the NES and SNES for Nintendo Switch Online, I was kind of excited. I even made a video saying that it had the potential to be better than the Virtual Console, and I realized that was a very stupid thing. Hindsight is 2020, but to be fair, it did have the potential to do it. Nintendo just never did anything with it because, like I stated earlier, in my mind, all the Virtual Console games were there. They're already the work was done. It's already in HD, and we were just going to be getting all those on the Switch. Never happened. They drip feed us games two, maybe three times a year. I haven't actually like researched and done the math, but it's very infrequent. And let's be real here. Most of the time, it's games nobody asked for. It's games I haven't even heard of. Once in a blue moon, you get that one game where like, yes, I was really looking forward to this. But most of the time, it just didn't play out like that. But the service was $20 a year. It was required to play Switch games online, and it was an okay service for what it was at that price. Fast forward to last month when we had Nintendo Direct and they revealed the expansion pass and 64 games, Genesis games. They're going to be added to Nintendo Switch Online. but they're going to be charging more money for it. And people were originally pretty excited. I mean, that's pretty cool. Adding that was a very highly requested thing, was to add stuff like N64 games, UBA games. I know people really, really want GameCube games. I do think though once you get to like GameCube territory, it gets a lot more difficult. But I mean, yes, N64 highly requested, very beloved system, and yeah, we were all pretty excited for it until that price reveal just a couple days ago. And I can now understand why they didn't want to show it in the direct. Like, could you imagine like the internet just exploding if they had that price announcement in the same direct where they announced that Chris Pratt was going to be Mario? Like that actually would have been pretty funny. I actually would like to see that play out. So we got this pretty big, massive price jump. People think is Nintendo being greedy. There's a rumor going around that this price jump is really because of all the different licensing fees that they need for the third-party stuff. And who knows, maybe it's both. Maybe it really is licensing fees. Maybe it's just Nintendo trying to take your money. Like, let's be real here. It wouldn't be the first time that they just took your money, right? Wouldn't be the first time for me either. Um, Honestly, it would make sense if it was the licensing fees. It would also explain why Nintendo has come out and said that the Animal Crossing New Horizons DLC is not the reason that this thing is $50. I think that they just added that in there to like help soften the blow. But that is still quite the price hike. And like if licensing fees are the cause for this, then why bother with it, right? If the price increase was $20 to $30 and Nintendo just stuck strictly to first party games only and they only added N64, I think people would have been okay with that. I probably would have been okay with that. Maybe instead of adding Genesis, you add GBA. You know, just stick to the first party stuff. If the licensing fees are really going to hurt you that bad, people would still be more than happy to pay another probably $10 to $15 if you just did like N64 or GBA and it was only the first party stuff. Like that would have been fine. Or maybe since they're in the business of adding DLC for their first party games to help this pill just be a little easier to swallow, maybe Animal Crossing Horizons DLC, and then you also throw in like Breath of the Wild or Splatoon 2 DLC. You should at least throw in DLC for a few games because not everyone plays Animal Crossing. A lot of people played it and don't play it anymore. Me being one of them. Just there's a couple different ways they could have handled this to make it better. There's a couple things they could have done to lower the price. There's a couple more things they could have added to justify the price. And in the end, it's just, for most people, it's not balancing out, right? There's sort of people that are going to find value in this, and that's fine. But for most of us, that's not the case. It just seems to me that there's a lot of weird decisions that have led us to this particular point in where we're at with this. And I'm having a hard time trying to like wrap my head around it. It's just crazy to think about how there is a whole ass team of people at Nintendo that thought this was okay. And who knows, maybe it is. We all know at the end of the day, internet outrage does not exactly equal financial loss for companies, especially one like Nintendo. These are the same people that sold us cardboard for like what, $80, and people bought it. And then they're like, hey, we can sell you more cardboard that you can fold in different ways. How many things? It was like two or three, maybe even four different variations of it. That was a wild time for sure. So yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that there's going to be enough people buying the expansion pass as it currently is, right? At the price they're asking for. There's going to be enough people doing it to where Nintendo just isn't going to budge on that price. And I know this is crazy talk, especially after what we've seen, but maybe one day there are enough games added to N64 Online to justify the price of the expansion pack. I definitely wouldn't hold my breath waiting for that, but yeah, it could happen. But then again, what would I know? I am just some guy on the internet.